Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is my custom off-road chopper. At this point, I'm fairly certain I know what our modified Hemi is capable of. Next, we're going to take a look at a non-Hemi. These two engines have a lot in common in the bottom end. They both have the Dynacam's Super X 265 cam, a stock length billet rod, and the ARC flywheel, which we're going to see very shortly. The big difference is the head, the piston, and, well, that's really about it at this point. With that said, there's a few things I want to clean up. Get the sheet metal off. I'm going to pull this vent, and I'm going to do a different coil wire. So she's a little tight. I'll get that out of the picture as well. It was a bit of a two-tiered effort. Here's they glued that son of a gun on there. Oh well. Next, valve cover. Valve cover extension. Just like the Hemi with the 14cc head, this non-Hemi has the Champion rockers. Gonna loosen my 4 bolts and remove the head. We're running this skinny head gasket with the 570 comp piston. We're not on the long rod, so we have just a little something at the top of the deck. That goes a little further though, in terms of building compression. This head is also milled 35 thousandths. It has stainless steel valves with the stock non-Hemi retainers. The big cheese in all of this is that the non-Hemi head has a 27 intake and a 25 on the exhaust. The 14cc head has a 25-24. I had that Wildcat 26mm WC22 carburetor on there. Not a bad looking burn. However, the manifold didn't line up with the intake port exact, and we have this rough edge that really goes about 2/3 the way around. I'm going to get the rest of this disassembled, and I'm going to figure out some way to mark the material that we're going to be removing. Alright, My valves, springs, and retainers are out. I'm going to put those in a bag, and I'm going to get this manifold off as well as that gasket. The spark plug was indexed and set using a couple filed down copper washers. Not only does it get the electrode into the most efficient position, but that also helped raise it up in the chamber ever so slightly, just in case that piston came up close. We had plenty of room though. If we look at the piston, we have our intake valve, exhaust, and the spark plug would be right up here. It's looking a-okay to me. Wicked sweet. Apparently we have two different things going on. Right there, you can see along the side and up top there, we're hanging in. Over on this side, it's the complete opposite. Everything is going one way. We can make an adjustment to this manifold, but then we'd be kind of stuck with this combination. We're just going to take care of that side right there. I'm going to grab the marker and try my best to get something down there. That actually worked perfectly. You can definitely see that. I'm just working this back a little at a time. I'm almost where I need to be. With the manifold back on, peeking down inside, you can see that we now have a smooth transition into the runner. I didn't take it back to the wall. I just tapered it. That way, we're not losing any of the structural integrity. I have this thing thoroughly cleaned, soap and water, rinsed a couple times, and I took the air chuck to it. Make sure there's none of those aluminum flakes. I have a fresh gasket pressed up to the back side of the intake manifold. You can see where we're going to have to make a little adjustment there too. I'm going to hit it with the marker and set it down on the workbench. Grab a razor blade and make that a little sweeter. Yeah. That's all it was. Just that little piece there. I'm feeling pretty good about this. I just used a little high heat RTV for my threads. I haven't had one of these bolts back out on these applications, but I figured I'd give that a shot before I get any Loctite in there. There we go. Nice and tight. Looking right. I'm just making sure that the exhaust gasket I'm going to use lines up with the opening on the flange. we're good there. But when you go to put the gasket onto the studs, you can see we're just a little shy off center. Again, for whatever reason, this head is a little bit different. So, it appears at one point I already did a little magic on the flange holes. So, I'll do the same thing over here. I'm really getting my use out of that thing these days. You can see I opened up the holes ever so slightly. That way it slides down nice and easy onto the studs. We're now ready to receive the header. I'm just going to put my nuts on there for now and let it hang out. That way, this isn't in the way. We still have some things to do. Next, I'm going to reinstall the valves. 22-pound springs, stainless steel, and the stock non-Hemi retainers. Don't skip thumb day, guys. This might get sore. I was very careful with these, and we didn't do anything to the seats, so I'm not going to waste my time lapping them in. They're already perfect. Clean rag, nice wipe down, a little bit of oil on my stems. Slide them down into the guides, and then onto the thumb bucklers. That actually wasn't too bad. They're only 22s after all. The key is to have something stuffed up under there to keep them from moving. That way you can maximize your torsion. I just put the head on the back burner. I'm waiting for a few things in the mail. I'm going to take this time to knock out the coil wire. I found this one for $8. It has a coil that I don't need and an end I don't need. But it has this nice length of red wire. So I'll get these off and find a different boot. I know it's up here somewhere. There we go. I just threaded one end in like normal, and now I'm going around a little bit of electrical tape. Trying something different. I just pulled my boot down tight over the electrical tape. One head bolt and a spark plug. Just finger tight. Now we can stick the boot onto the spark plug, and we have an idea as to how long the wire has to be. It's going to be, I don't know, something like that. Make sure I can get at least 2 out of this. I just used my strippers to cut back a little piece of the rubber. I took the exposed copper and I made a small loop. That small loop is going to go underneath those two tangs in the middle. Those two tangs will get crimped on top of the loop, and then these tangs will give the red, we'll call it conduit portion, a nice tight hug. There you go. Not too shabby. Now I'll pull the boot off and we're going to carefully stick this end into this end so that the spark plug can be received through that end. Yep, we got it. You see down in there? All right. Good to go. Now, I'm going to take the head off again. Since we're adding a little bit of compression, I'm going to be swapping out these stock head bolts for a Mondo stud kit from my friends at OMBWarehouse.com. All four of my studs are finger tight. Next, we're going to need a head gasket. I'm reusing the same head gasket that I just had on here. So, I took clean paper towel, a little bit of warm water on it, and I just gently cleaned both sides. This time around, I'm going to give this copper spray a shot. From what I've collected, you can spray one side, let it dry, flip it over, spray the other side, let it dry, and then we can install it. See how this goes. I just stepped outside, gave it its first shot. Here's one side, let that dry for about 10 minutes, flip it over, I'll whack the other side. With the same paper towel, just gave it a misting, some super clean, and then used it to wipe the top of the piston off. I also got just the top of the cylinder. I just lowered the piston down via the flywheel and used my finger to coat the cylinder with some clean oil. Now I'll bring the piston back up and I'm going to use the clean rag to catch that oil. I'll bring it all the way up. See, we'll even get a little more of the honey right there. Give it a wipe. I'm going to do that probably 3 or 4 times. Now I'm cleaning my stainless steel push rods off and making sure that everything is clean and where it needs to be. Kind of hard for you to see down in there, but this one has a bored out galley hole. Nothing in there. Good to go. I have the gasket placed onto the studs and the dowels. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the head. I just have to put the nuts on and torque them to 20 foot-pounds. The head's installed, the nuts are torqued, and my push rods are in. Now we're going to complete the Champion rockers. The nuts on the Champion rockers are 94 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds this time. I just gave my valves a quick lash. Now I'm going to finish installing the valve cover. This one is going to be a little bit different. Traditionally, the valve cover has an internal vent. As you can see, it takes up a large amount of the real estate inside the actual cover. Here's one with the internal vent removed. This one is being set up for an external PCV valve that's going to work as a vent, but a whole lot better. With the Champion rockers, I'm still running the valve cover extension. Whether I make the clearance or not by removing that internal vent, I'm not sure. But by leaving it here, we're increasing the size of the chamber inside even more. If this vent is meant to release pressure from the inside of the engine outward and not let it back in, then I assume the larger chamber is going to have less pressure as well, because you're increasing the volume. We could run a smaller one of these barbs out of the extension. However, we're going to leave that plugged, and we're going to run a larger barb. That is going to run through a much larger hose. This one is a 3/8 inside diameter. On the end, it's fitted to an automotive PCV valve and a filter. Any oil that comes out of this under pressure has plenty of room within that line to build up and return back into the engine, all the time relieving pressure. This also leaves us open to put a barb here and to run one to our crankcase cover at another point in time. That point in time would be if we start blowing out the side cover gasket. I just reused the spark plug that I took off of this engine and then mated up a 26 millimeter Wildcat carburetor to the EC manifold. Now we're ready to mount the engine on the mini bike. I have everything disconnected. I'm going to use this coil wire so that I can leave my harness all together. 2 nuts in the front, 2 nuts in the back. Over on this side, all I had to do was remove the header, the belt, and the driver. Something I realized with the Tillotson 212R and the reinforced block, they're not as easy to install as these Predators are. You can remove this sheet metal when you take off the fan shroud, and that gives you some nice side access to get those back nuts in there. The other game changer, the 75-degree offset wrench. This goes up and over this tube. Even with the Tillotson, I can get it in there fairly quick. This is definitely nice though. The trick up front is a small set of these SK stud sockets. You just find the one that fits over your threads, and as you spin them, they lock on. That allows you to turn the stud. I just hold on to my nut up top and then work the stud from below. Once I have the amount of threads that I want up top, I lock it on with a lock washer and a grade 8 nut. When you're running the line for the PCV filter, you want to keep the tube and the valve itself above the barb. That way, if anything gets up into the tube, it can flow back downwards with the help of gravity. I have mine zip tied up here. It's not going to be in the way of anything. It looks really cool. Now I just have to figure out my length, cut it, and connect it there. I just used a hose clamp to attach it to the barb, and it barely touches the end of the throttle cable above the carburetor. Not even an issue. That'll work. It also fit behind the air filter. Over on this side, everything is hooked up, ready to go. that definitely sounds promising. Up next comes the fun part, when we get to test this thing out. Because as always, it's a work in progress. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
I want you to smile.